Welcome to episode 5 of End the Weekend. This week we're talking about range anxiety.
Hey, I'm Shane.
I'm Andrew. So, Shane, you're probably the authority on this subject when it comes to range anxiety, but I think we can quickly have a quick chat about the TikTok that went viral about the guy had an Ionic 5 and kind of only went to Canberra, but kind of had a disaster trying to find a charger.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a bit of a shocking run. What was the gist of it?
I think the gist was basically he went on a trip to Canberra, tried to stop at a supercharger in Goulburn, but the Goulburn supercharger was not working. I think it was a NRMA or a Fox Charge network one,
Yeah, ChargeFox, I think.
ChargeFox, and he was unable to charge. He then went into Canberra trying to find somewhere to charge. He found something at IKEA, but it was really slow. And he tried to find. He spent I think 2.5 hours trying to find a charger. So I've got to say, Shane, like something like this does worry me a little when it comes to buying an EV. I mean, I don't road trip that often, but I would like to do it every now and again. And with the price of electricity versus fuel, I think I'd like to do some more road tripping. So is it going to end the weekend for me when it comes to the Model Y when I get my Model Y?
Oh, I'm so pumped for you when you get that. But I don't think it'll end the weekend. But right now, particularly if you have a non-Tesla, you do have to do a little bit more planning, I think, for those longer road trips.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
you think this problem that this guy had was more around the fact that it was an Ionic 5 and could only use standard chargers and not Tesla chargers? Do we think the Tesla charger network is that much better?
yeah. Anecdotally and based on my own experience, yeah, the Tesla chargers are a lot more reliable. There's a lot more bays where they're situated, uh, um, which just leads to greater availability, I think. And it probably just goes to show that um, Tesla had a bit of an idea what they were doing when they initially put a lot of effort into rolling out the supercharging networks. So I guess with a Tesla at the moment, you've got the opportunity to use the Tesla stuff, but you can also go use the third-party chargers too.
Yeah, exactly. Do you? So what's the deal? Because like obviously I don't really have that much experience with electric cars. It's only been a couple of trips with you and some other friends that have EVs. Do you have to supply your own cable? Do you just turn up and you plug in? How does a general charging work?
Yeah, good question. So my experience so far has been with the what they sort of call the ultra rapid chargers or ultra fast chargers. They have their own adapters built in. So you don't need to bring any plugs or anything like that. You just rock up to them. You navigate the specific things you need to do for that particular charger, which some will let you just tap and pay. Others will have an app. I find the app sort of a bit easier to use because you can just have your credit card details on there and rock up, open the app, find the charging bay number that you're at, and just tell it, plug the car in and tell it to start charging.
What
But
about
there
Tesla?
are
About
quite a
Tesla ones? What's the experience with Tesla ones?
Tesla's, you don't have to worry about an app. The Tesla is sort of linked to your car. So you just rock up, pop open the charging port, plug the Tesla charging connector into the car, and it's just linked to your credit card and away it goes.
Right.
So
So you get a
pop,
you get a bill later on in the mail that says, yeah, you charged this much while you were here.
you get an email later on and they'll tell you how much you've sort of how many kilowatt hours you've pumped into the car and at what how much the rate is per kilowatt hour.
It's probably a good segue, Shane. So rates and charges, like what has your experience been out there when it comes to how quick or how slow it takes to charge a car? Because obviously one of the problems that this fella came into was he found a charger, but it was way too slow.
Yeah, I'm guessing it was either a 50 kilowatt charger or slower, possibly, which can take a little bit of time. With the ultra fast chargers, they charge faster than you think. Um, Depending on what your brakes are normally like when you're going on a road trip. For me and my partner, we like to stop roughly every 2.5 hours anyway, and we'll stop for 15, 20 minutes. On an ultra fast charger, that'll get you from 20 to 80% pretty easily, which is normally enough to then get you to the next charger. So people are probably pretty familiar with their phones, how they tend to charge pretty quick up to sort of 80%, and then it gets a bit slower. The cars work pretty similar. So really fast charging in that sort of 20 to 80% range. And then after that, it tapers off. So some of the chargers actually try and sort of kick you off at 80%, and you've got to kind of force it if you want to do more than that, which I think is a way of trying to.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there a reason to get you off it? Is it just because you can make it to the next charger on 80%? Like,
Yeah, I think it's to try to encourage good etiquette maybe, and not tying up those ultra fast chargers with that, that last 20% of juice, which you might not really need to get you there. But if you do need it, you can sort of force it to go through. Not all of them do that. I've only seen that sort of once or twice, I think. And apparently some of the Tesla ones do that, or they'll charge you more if they're at a high volume charging bay.
Right. Okay.
As a way, I guess, of stopping people sort of leaving their things plugged in too long when they're not needed, particularly when you're down 100% as well. You might cop a charge if you don't get back to your car within a certain amount of time to unplug it again.
Yeah. What kind of I guess prices are you paying when you're charging at these fast chargers? Obviously, you're not going to get, like, if you're charging at home, you're charging off solar, that's pretty much free. But when you're at home, I think you pay, depending on who your energy provider is, anywhere between 20 to 35 cents per kilowatt. What are we paying at these destination chargers / superchargers?
Yeah, good
Do they
question.
vary depending on the speed?
Yeah, they do vary. So yeah, like you said, charging from solar will, for me, my feed-in tariff's like 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's roughly cost me maybe $2 to $3 to fill up from solar if I can manage to make that happen, which so far I've been lucky, although this weekend it's looking a bit grey outside, so I don't know how well I'll go. But failing that, I'd be charging from the grid at 20, which my price is going to go up. It's going to be 30 cents a kilowatt hour. But even then, what are we talking? Maybe somewhere between $10 to $15. And then when you get to the ultra fast charging, it's roughly around 60 cents a kilowatt hour at the moment. We can get discounts with your roadside assistance potentially, or through other partners.
Yep.
So NRMA will give a 20% discount, I think. So that took it down to about, at the time we were filling up, was about 41 cents a kilowatt hour with the ChargeFox ones, and that dropped it down to about 34 or 31 cents thereabouts. So yeah, it's still a heck of a lot cheaper than petrol though.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe we should talk a bit about trip planning. So I feel like, based on what you've been telling us here, how can you plan a trip better when you're essentially needing to, go on a larger drive? Like, how can I make sure that the next charging spot that I'm going to isn't broken, isn't not working, and how, what tools are out there for us to, plan our trips better?
Yeah, there's a few good ones that get a lot of recommendations online, and for good reason. The two that I'll talk to first, PlugShare
Sure.
is an app that has a list of all the chargers in there. It'll show you the map where you're located and what chargers are nearby, and you can do filtering to sort of search for slow or fast chargers depending on what you're after. Different plug types. Not that most people in an EV these days will need to worry too much, because the adapters are largely pretty standard now, except for some of the very early adopters. So you don't have to worry about that quite as much. But
So,
yeah,
touching on that, like, what are the standard cables out there? I guess, I mean, the only ones I really know of is CHAdeMO, and I think it's Type 2. What are
yeah,
the types of cables out
the
there?
CCS2
CCS2.
format is the one that's on the Teslas and all the current models coming out. There are some of the original EV stations out there that might still have the CHAdeMO ones,
Right, so
but
CHAdeMO's
yeah.
not the standard, is it? Okay. Do you need
Yeah.
adapters or anything? Like, do you carry adapters around with you in your car when you're going around charging?
We haven't yet. I'm tempted to maybe buy a Type 2 to Type 2 adapter for.
What's the reason?
There was a few times where we had been close to a charger that was a BYO cable.
Right.
So it might have been like a destination charger, maybe a 11 or 22 kilowatt one that didn't have a cable attached, and we weren't able to charge there. But that's, even then, we had other options available to us, so it was never that big of a deal. That'll probably cost about $300 to buy one of those cables, but I think that might be worth having for the next big road trip we do, just in case.
Yeah.
Or in case that the BYO becomes a bit more common as maybe more destination charges and things come in, and yeah, maybe chargers cables get vandalized and things like that. So BYO might not be a
Yeah,
bad
it might
idea.
become a standard, right? Like exactly right. If someone's trying to steal the copper from these charging cables, I mean, I guess that's one way to deal with it. BYO cable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, PlugShare. What's good about it is you can search in advance to a charging destination that you're planning to go to, and you'll be able to see if people have checked in there recently. So people will jump in the app, they'll check in on it, and sort of say, yep, this was working fine. Here's the sort of speeds I was getting, or, don't use bay 2, it's been, vandalized or isn't working, use bay 1. So you can have a bit of an idea what to expect. And if you jump on there, a day before you're heading there, and someone the day before has said it's working all right, good chance
Do you
that's,
find a lot of EV users are using it? Like, was it pretty up to date when you were using PlugShare?
yeah. I found that there had always been a fairly recent update on them. It might have been a couple of days ago, but the popular ones generally had a couple of check-ins a day on them. Less popular ones might have had someone a few days ago, but it still gave me some confidence that it was at least working then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, highly recommend PlugShare. I guess the more people that do use it and sort of do check in, the better for the whole community that use it. I've never had anyone leave me a note on it, but you can also sort of message people via the app.
Oh, right. Okay. Like,
Hey, I really need this charge. You reckon you can come back to your car or something like that? So um, I think that could be useful in a pinch if, someone had stepped away from their car for a bit. And yeah, so a few options there. The other one, which is really good, is an app called A Better Route Planner, or ABRP as its acronym. That lets you put your destination in and plan the trip out, and you put your car make and model in, and you set a few parameters and things that you want to put in there. Like you can be conservative with some of the things, but it will help estimate your range and tell you the stops you need to take on your destination. So you can configure it to, prefer Tesla chargers only if, Tesla. You can tell it to, prefer like ChargeFox if you're with NRMA and you get discount with them, and it will try and sort of optimize the route for you. And I normally set like a little bit of a thing in there so that I want to arrive with no less than 20% range at that destination, just in case
There's something up.
something happens and or anything like that. So it'll yeah, help with the planning out of a long road trip.
Have you found you went over to Queensland? You've been basically all up and down the border, right? You've been down to Victoria, up to Queensland. You went regional Queensland too. Were you ever at a point where you're like, shit, I wish I had a gas canister?
No, I did never at a point where I wish I had the jerry can out, but I think I could see why, like that the guy on the TikTok, why he did run into trouble. And I've actually used that Goldman ChargeFox charger as well. So he must have had a bad run of it. A bit unlucky. But yeah, I've never felt that I needed it. And I've always had the portable charger in the car as well.
That's just the
What is
one
it
that
called?
comes with the car, yeah. The
The
truck
UMC, the Universal, I forget, I've got the name for the UMC, but it's the portable charger that you can plug into any
240 volt.
electricity 10 amp port. So I've always felt that, like, in an absolute pinch, I'm surely going to be able to find a PowerPoint somewhere, even if I've got a.
Well, there's definitely more PowerPoints than Bowser's, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. So there's, I mean, that would be slow to charge off, but in a real pinch,
Yeah.
I think
It
you'd
could
be able
get
to find.
you could charge up 10%, 20% just to get you to your next destination, right?
The other thing I've heard from reading a few people online is you get like the three-phase tail for the portable charger, so that you can potentially plug it in at showgrounds and or even
Yeah, that was
camping
interesting because
spots.
there was that article that came out, I think, in the last couple of weeks, was the person that did a road trip around Australia, even through the Northern Territory, with a Tesla. I think it was 24,000 kilometers done round trip, and entirely in a Tesla, and surprisingly didn't really run into any other problems. I think it was managed through, exactly as you say, showgrounds and places where they had three-phase power available, and was able to just plug in and top up when they needed to, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I think that might have been the first lady to do a solo around the trip in an EV in Australia,
Yeah.
which is power to her. That's pretty awesome. But yeah, I think she had a little bit of help with some good planning with some of the areas where there was lack of charging, where she just chose to stay overnight with people that would said, yeah, you can plug into my garage, or
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, like, there's not many people that have a Bowser in a garage at home, but almost everyone has a PowerPoint that has a garage in there. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So there was also an announcement, I think, during this week from Labor saying that they wanted to increase the amount of charging infrastructure and network. Do you feel that it's needed, or is this just political wins that they're trying to get?
no, I think it's needed. As more and more EVs come on the road, there's going to be more need for fast charging. I think it's probably blown out of proportion at the moment how bad it is. That said, I've only driven up and down the East Coast, which is pretty well provisioned. So it's probably a bit different to driving up and down the West Coast of
It would be
WA, or
Western Australia.
going inland and things like that. But yeah, so I think more chargers are good. The thing that I think will really help with more chargers coming in is that it means the batteries don't need to be as big in the cars, which means the cost will be cheaper. And yeah, if people can get a decent car with 400k range, and every servo eventually almost has one of these fast chargers, that's really going to help.
I think that one's a bit of a no-brainer. I think servos should be, imagine that every single servo we had a fast charger in it, right? It didn't only need to be one. There's that many servos around, right?
Yeah, and you can put them in, the bays they have where you go to grab snacks. They don't have to be at the Bowser
Yeah,
sections yet. You can still keep them for petrol for now, but eventually, you might have seen in the UK, they've got like essentially, it looks like a petrol station, but where the petrol pumps are, they're just fast chargers.
yeah, nuts, nuts. Oh, that's been a good insight. Anything you would change on your road trips that you've done so far, or like any recommendations to some of our newcomers, including myself, for a road trip in the future?
Yeah, do spend half hour planning out your trip beforehand. You can use Google Maps. I think Google Maps is actually starting to put some EV features in.
Yeah, I think I
Um,
heard something like. I think you're right. Yeah, I think I've read something somewhere that it's coming.
I haven't used it much in Australia yet, but you can just search for like EV stations in Google Maps, and it will find the Aussie ones. But I think there's overseas, some of the Google Maps features are sort of maybe doing similar things to what a better route planner can do in terms of helping you map out your thing. So I think it'd be cool if they, I'd say Google will probably be all over that. But yeah, just map out your route using a better route planner. Have a backup option, particularly if in a non-Tesla. Some of the major charging stations are only if you don't if you can't make that one for any reason, or it's out of order, you could be in trouble, like when you're doing some of those longer road trips. So try and have a backup option available on your first road trip. Don't run it too lean until you get a feel for the car and
That's
how
probably good
much.
advice, actually. Have a feel for the car first. I think that goes with any car, including like even if it was a nice car. I think I would make that recommendation: get a feel for the car before you start pushing it, right?
And if you're like one of those people that's in a diesel that likes to do those 700k straight, then I'd say just, maybe have a break every 200 Ks in your first EV trip, and just take, what's the acronym? ABC, always be charging. We charge every opportunity we get when we're on the road trip, just because like, why not go out for dinner? We actually picked a spot where they had a destination Tesla charger, so we could, it was 10-minute drive away from where we we're staying. Went there, spent 2 hours there, having dinner and having a drink, and then by the time we finished it, we'd have put an extra 30% in, I think.
Yeah, it's better. I mean, you don't go to a restaurant and fill up your petrol tank like 30%, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. I think we might do a episode for the YouTube channel, or maybe Shane, I'll get you to talk us through on maybe some of this route planning. It might be a good video we might come out in the future. And yeah, just give us a quick video. And so keep your eye out on the YouTube channel, and might come out with that in sooner rather than later. I think for this episode is where we might wrap it up. Any final words, Shane?
No, just just think it through, map out the route, but I think you can go further in EV than you think you can.
And it doesn't have to end the weekend.
Doesn't have to end the weekend.
All right. I'm Andrew.
I'm Shane.
Catch you guys next time. Peace.